Excellent. Let's explore the Rahu ruled Nakshatra.
Yes, this is a pretty powerful one and ruled by Varuna, which Varuna is the Vedic equivalent of Neptune. He's the god of the oceans. But he's a little bit more than that. He is one of the earliest Vedic deities, and he was purported to have unlimited knowledge, complete awareness and knowing of everything. I also read one association with Varuna was that he was in charge of the nakshatras, because he has that complete knowledge that he's able to impart to individuals through the nakshatras. The Vedas state that he holds together mankind and the earth. So if he's associated with the nakshatras, that would make sense. Mm-hmm. He dwells over all of the world as its sovereign ruler. He is the God who made the golden sun to shine in heaven. So the sun being the light. That light is the awareness which we'll see through the process of Shatabhisha, which begins to unravel illusion and cut through the illusion. The wind which resounds through the atmosphere is his breath. So wind is about change. So all change is his breath. All the experiences of change that we're going through are his breath. He witnesses both truth and falsehood. He instructs the Rishi Vashishta in mysteries no ordinary man can comprehend. Mm-hmm. Now, Varuna, one of the things that he does, he's in charge of universal law. What do I mean by that? Well, here we have man-made law. If you do this, you may have to pay this fine, right? If you don't do that, well, or if you don't get caught doing that, then you're not going to have to do anything. Or if you do this, but you have a lot of money, you can get off easy with it. Then we've got universal law, which kind of compensates for where man-made law isn't really able to take care of things. So all those people that get by with things that they really shouldn't have gotten by with, well, that's part of universal law, and something will ultimately happen if it's meant to happen in their dharma that will rectify it. Or maybe that action that they took was in terms of rectifying something else, right? So Varuna is in charge of that. He's in charge of universal law. So he dispenses both the karma that we're here to encounter and the dharma with which to meet that karma. So he, if you remember when we were speaking about Anuradha, we were saying that Mitra uncovers during the day what Varuna covers up at night. Mm-hmm. So Varuna creates all these experiences that we go through in order to become more aware. Right? That's basically what Shatabhisha is all about. Another name for Shatabhisha is Pracheta, which also refers to the progenitors of the human race, which were Manu, Daksha, and Valmiki. Having achieved divine knowledge, they take care of creation. The Manus are concerned with physical growth and the organization of society. Interactions between countries, interactions between people, how cultures are set up, and also geological changes. Mm-hmm. The dakshas are similar, but they function on lower planes to carry out their tasks. And in terms of carrying out their tasks, they quite often accept restrictions voluntarily and spiritual deprivation to discharge their duty. Valmikis impart spiritual knowledge and influence humanity to purify themselves. Now, the association that I like speaking of with Shatabhisha, because Shatabhisha ultimately gives the power of healing. So if you look at the fact that when we catch a cold bug, well, we're catching a bug and we have to get sick to flush out the cold. Mm-hmm. Similarly, what Shatabhisha will sometimes do is to bring about something which is chaotic or a calamity or some difficulty in our life so that we go through an experience so that we're able to heal. right? It'll bring a challenge so that we become more whole. So it's very fitting that it's ruled by Rahu, because that's exactly what Rahu does. Rahu will create specific events so that we work out our karma.
Right.
Yeah. So the basis above is pervasion overall. And it said Varuna pervades overall too, right? So he pervades overall. He's connected with everything. The basis below is the support of all. So the pervasion overall that's coming from the heavens creates a support for every single individual to go through their experience of evolution. Mm-hmm. Once we understand that evolutionary process, once we understand why we're going through certain experiences, then our world, or the world at large, if enough people were doing it all at the same time, becomes free of calamity. The guna association here, sattvic at its basis. Then it builds upon that energy with tamasic energy in order to create further sattva. So one has to be, very focused and determined to walk a certain path. Dharma-driven. It's the primary motivation. But another association with that tamasic energy is people with planets in Shatabhisha generally are here to impart something to humanity in relation to that particular planet. But they don't necessarily feel happy about doing that. It's a duty. It's a responsibility.
Right.
That responsibility doesn't necessarily bring happiness, which kind of brings into connection the Trimurti association, which is Shiva. So the individual themselves is acting as a manifestation of Shiva to cut through the illusion by just discharging their dharma, but they're also going through their own process that's connected to that. It's getting rid of the illusion and getting rid of the delusion, which is the separation from self and divinity.
Right.
Which is very similar to Neptune. Neptune tends to be a very illusionary planet, very slippery, but what it's trying to teach you is what's beneath all those different forms that you're attaching to is one essence.
Right.
It's trying to bring your awareness to that essence. But the only way that it can do that is by creating this Maya, or this web of illusion that you have to work through.
Right.
Most recently, Neptune was in Shatabhisha for a good while. Yeah. And while that was happening, interestingly enough, what I noticed, because it's was that when we were talking about the Manus being associated with geological changes, while the Earth was going through a lot of geological changes, there were a lot of Earth changes happening, still are happening, when Neptune was in Shatabhisha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so Neptune's the idea of wherever it's placed in your chart kind of makes you think that that's where you're going to find deeper connection and deeper meaning, in a sense, and then kind of reveals to you that that's not where you're going to find it, or that you have to go beyond the clinging to that thing. And that's similar. What you're saying here is planets in Shatabhisha.
Yeah, well, with Neptune we can become attached to a form,
right,
on some levels. Let's say Neptune is helping us to work on relationships. Well, we might become attached to relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Only to find beneath the surface that it's not the form of the relationship or the individual one is having a relationship with, but what one is actually meant to learn about relationships underneath all those surface experiences that we're going through.
Right.
Yeah. Similar things happen with Shatabhisha. Shatabhisha will create certain difficult experiences, many times in association with that planet, so that we go through a learning experience. And that learning experience deepens our understanding in relation to that planet, deepens our integration of that planet.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. While you were chatting, I did a quick little run through on Mercury in, was it Danishta? Was that what we were thinking about? Yes. And there's only one astrologer that came up in my database, and that was Charles E. O'Connor, who was born in 1887. So there were a lot of philosophers and gurus like Vivekananda and others who had their
Oh, that makes sense.
yeah. There's quite a
Yeah,
few of them listed, so I thought that's kind of fascinating.
yeah, definitely.
But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack you
That's
there.
okay. Yeah.
So back to Shatabhisha. So, yeah. So, do you have any other thoughts on this particular nakshatra while we're speaking about it?
Well, I have found if a career planet is placed in Shatabhisha, and interestingly enough, the power of healing tends to bear itself out here. A lot of doctors or alternative therapists can have a prominent planetary placement in Shatabhisha. And quite likely they'd be very devoted to their path, even though sometimes they weren't getting a high level of happiness with it, right? Even, or I should say, even when they're not getting a high level of happiness, they'd be very devoted to the work that they're here to do. And I would venture a guess, and I haven't really spoken to a lot of them on this level that I'm going to suggest next, but I would venture a guess if one spoke to them, they would find that through every experience of a client that they were having, they were learning something further about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. With the Shakti, the power of healing, and what the meaning, hundreds of healers, right?
Yes. Yes.
And of course, you want healers to make the world free of calamity.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes, that makes some good sense. Excellent. Yeah, so it seemed that whatever planet was in this nakshatra, there could be an element of healing going on around that planet. Depending on what house lord it was, or what that planet just naturally indicated, that there would be possibly some focus on either healing or maybe integrating that within the person's life. Does that seem accurate?
Yes, and the person would likely go through some sort of difficulty.
Right.
Some sort of feeling like they weren't getting whatever that planet was about.
Right.
So that they had something later revealed to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the same thing, kind of thinking about your comment on 10th Lord or 10th cusp being in this nakshatra. A lot of people get into healing or get into medicine because they themselves have had to deal with health issues, or their family members might have had to deal with health issues. So, kind of speak to that, almost like that wounded healer archetype or something like that, coming from this particular nakshatra.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah, good. Yeah. All right, that's fascinating. All right. Well, does that bring us to the end of our discourse for today?
I think that we're done.
Good. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that came to mind around this particular nakshatra, but I think we covered it pretty well. All right. We've only got, 4 more to go? Is that correct?
We've got 3 more to go.
3 more. Okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, and we'll pick up on that next time before we move into the actual techniques that we'll be covering in this course. All right. Well, thank you very much, Michael. It was a pleasure to speak with you again and hear what you have to say about the nakshatras.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay.